Hey everyone, this is Steve Rozenberg with Mynd Property Management, and today I'm joined with my very good friend Trevor Steadman, who is the portfolio manager for the Reno operations for Mynd. Trevor, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Steve, as always, for having me on your show.
So, Trevor, selecting a resident can be the most scariest part of being an investor sometimes because it's not something that we do all the time. And if you are a self-landlord and you're doing this every so often, you may not be up on the current laws. You may not really know what is the proper way to screen and vet the right resident. So what would you say if you had to narrow down, let's just say the top three things that you should be looking out for and, good things to know about when you are selecting a resident? What would you say those would be?
Yeah, definitely. Selecting a tenant to fill your investment rental is probably one of the most stressful processes of getting a property and actually having it make money for you. Buying a property, renovating it, those are all things you can control. But you're letting someone from the public rent a piece of your investment or your retirement, your asset for a period of time and pay you money to do it. So who do you put in there? That's the big question. I probably would boil down the top three things I look for when selecting tenants as the following. Financial stability. Make sure that the resident that's moving into your home has the means to afford your product. Make sure that they've been employed with an employer or have a trade that's stable, or even looking towards an employer reference to make sure that that company isn't just going to move in a year and a half when they move their distribution centers. Financial stability is really important. Something that a lot of homeowners or private landlords who do self-manage, I don't think take as much time in vetting, and then they get shocked when the tenant comes up short with the rent, 3 or 4 months down the line. Very important. Number two, I would say references. Same thing with employer references, prior rental references, and even personal references. We all ask for it on our applications. Take the 5 minutes and make a phone call, and even ask that person for an additional reference when you're on the phone with them, kind of having a second tier of protection against vetting out the tenant that you're trying to select for the property. And then number three, identify the individual's personal goals, short and long term. So are they here for work for a couple months while they're working on a project? Are they looking to buy a home in 3 to 4 years once they've saved up some money? Identifying those long-term plans or those short-term plans will put you in a better position so that your property itself is filled with the right tenant. All investors really want is long-term renewable tenants. Some investors want short-term higher rents. So if you can find those two and put them together, it'll be a happy marriage for all.
It's funny. I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but, just going back to the first one where you talk about the financial stability, I think, one of the things a lot of investors make a mistake on is they don't understand that how you screen one resident for a property, you have to screen them all the same way. And a lot of times a lot of investors don't realize that you have to have policies and procedures, and it has to be standardized for fair housing laws, right. Discrimination, Fair Credit Reporting Act. And that's when people start getting in trouble, is because if you think of the scenario, let's say you had a rental property and that rental property you thought was going to be vacant for maybe 3 weeks, and now it's been vacant for 3 months. And now you loosen the restrictions because maybe you were too restrictive, and now you accept a resident very similar to one that you denied in the beginning. And now that first resident could potentially come back and say, wait a second, you're discriminating against me because I had those numbers. I'm the same resident as that one. And now you have to explain why you did that. And just because you financially are in a bad position, unfortunately, is not an answer for a judge or a legal matter. So I would say one of the best things that you should do when you're selecting a tenant is make sure you have your qualifications written down and you follow them to the T. And again, remember that it's not just who you accept, it's who you do not accept and where that could come back and affect you down the road. I'm sure, you as well as I do know that putting the right or wrong resident in your property is that is the difference of a great successful investing career and a nightmarish horrible one. I know firsthand by doing it when I first started that was the definition of a bad investment was the resident, basically, that I personally put in wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And having those standards put in place is extremely important, not only protection for you against any litigation that comes against you in your selection process, but also it holds yourself accountable. If you tell yourself that these are my 5 parameters, this is what I want to stick to, as long as they're reasonable and they're smart, you should have no problem finding someone who fits in with those boxes. Also, don't settle, because settling opens you up for other issues with the resident and with yourself down the road.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, that's great. And obviously you are a wealth of information. Trevor, if somebody wants to talk to you, you know, again, even if we don't manage their property and they just want to talk to you about best practices, or if they do want to talk to us about managing their property and want to be smart about it, how would they go about finding you?
Yeah, definitely. My office is located here on 1575 DeLucci, right by the Meadowwood Mall in Reno. My number is 775-335-0124 if you want to give me a call. I'm always here to take questions, and I frequently get questions from investors regarding questions just like this.
That's great. And for those of you that want to continue educating yourself in the real estate world, please join our Facebook group. It's the Mastermind, MYND, Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. And there we discuss all things real estate, both local and national. You can comment, engage, and get involved in certain conversations that are going on that may be relevant to you or things you just want to know about. Also, I would suggest that you join our podcast show that's on iTunes, Spotify. There we discuss anything from a brand new investor all the way to experienced investors. More importantly, what makes them successful and how their failures and challenges got them there. So it's a great show, a lot of very interesting individuals on there, all real estate related. So I invite you to subscribe to that so you can get the updates. And on behalf of Trevor and myself, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group.